Hey, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show. Thanks for tuning in to the Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM. If you're interested in sponsoring my show, you can send me an email to the Mike Wagner Show at gmail.com, or you could also donate to the podcast. Just go to the donate listen site, and you can also donate whatever you like. Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. For those who are interested, Anchor can give you everything you need in one place for free, which you can use right from your phone or computer. We've got creation tools, allows you to record and edit podcasts so it sounds great, and they'll distribute the podcast for you so it can be heard everywhere. Spotify, Apple, Google, many more. And you can make money from the podcast with no minimum listenership. So download the Anchor app for free or go to Anchor FM to get started.
It's now time for the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show brings you famous celebrities and amazing people from all over the world. Listen online at themikewagnershow.com and on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. And watch the interview on YouTube. So sit back and relax and enjoy the Mike Wagner Show.
Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Look for a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention Mike Wagner Show, get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at Facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, and also on iTunes, Apple, Google Play. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on YouTube channel and take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. We're here with a wonderful woman from St. Petersburg, Florida, the author of Woman of Many Names, available on Amazon.com. It's about a woman who helped shape the history of our nation and with ties to Daniel Boone, George Washington, and a role model to Joan of Arc, and memorialized in a very interesting part of the state. And she's also known by a special name, the Trail of Tears, and also one of the directors had serious regrets about not making a movie about this special person. Without further ado, we have a fine lady here who's taken interest in a woman of many names, and you can also check out the website, womanofmanynames.com, and here she is, the woman of many names, but she'd rather go by just one. Ladies and gentlemen, from the beautiful state of Florida, Debra Yates. That's the one name. Debra, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, good evening, Mike. What a splendid rendition there. Yeah, that's great. I love it.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. If you have many names, you could have told me I go by this, I go by that. But, just you being Debra Yates, you're the author of Woman of Many Names, available on Amazon. And it's about a woman who helped shape the history of the nation, ties to Daniel Boone, George Washington, serves as role model to Joan of Arc, and memorialized in a very interesting part of the state. And before we get into all that, tell us how you got started.
Well, I actually was just on a road trip driving around, and I was on my way to Georgia, and I was driving through Tennessee, and I thought, oh, I need to go in there to that state forest. I think there's things there that I need to discover. And because the Cherokee National Forest runs through pretty much, the central and eastern part of Tennessee. And I mean, I knew I was Cherokee, born in my blood, and I tell people that it doesn't matter how much Native American you have in you, you've got to drop. Uh-huh. And that's, I think, something to be very proud of. Our heritage goes back to, well before the white man and from England and France and the folks from Spain and stuff started, really exploring this territory. And, to know that your people walked this ground, thousands of years ago that we live on today, it's an honor to have that instilled in you. And even though I wasn't raised in the Native American culture, I find it interesting now looking back. I'm 60 something, and the influences that it has in my life today, it just amazes me how those cultural things, have been carried down through our family, like cornbread and beans and, just different even foods, as well as, maybe the way we have thought processes. And, I think a lot of Native Americans have a natural, and, we're have a tendency, to fear, government and different things like this. And that's a really hard statement for me to make. I almost didn't even want to get it out of my mouth. But I find it to be very true. I find it to be very true today, too.
And also, too, now I just want to clarify, and did you say you're part of the Native American Cherokee, or was it just, you say you're born in... Oh, you are, okay.
I am Cherokee Indian. My grandfather came off the reservation or the nation out in Tahlequah, and when he was a little boy in the early 1900s, there was like a mass exodus from the Oklahoma territories. It was very hot and dusty and windy, and not a lot of things were going on, and the people were starving to death, basically. They were, malnourished and couldn't find jobs. And if you don't have jobs, you can't get food. And so as a very young man, I believe he was about 12, he had been orphaned at 9. And he told us both his parents had died. So a story we accepted wholeheartedly. And he came to live with his sister in Winter Haven, Florida, which is not too far from where I'm at now. And, he did what he had to do to survive. He left there. He never went back. And from there, he migrated to Ohio, where he raised a family. And that Native American part of him, he hid that. We weren't to discuss our Native American heritage. It was something, that I didn't find out till I was probably 12, 13 years old.
Wow.
I just wondered where these dark looks came from. And, my skin, I'd lay out for an hour and I'd be as darker than my friends that had been laying out for 2 weeks. It's like, I don't understand this, but oh, well, I'll go with it because I don't have to sit out in the sun so much. But, and I had a natural love for the outdoors. I always rooted for the Indians and the cowboy and Indian shows, it's like, and I never really understood why. And I had an affinity for wolves and for swans and just all kinds of animals, horses. It was just me. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to be with my animals, play with my animals, groom my animals, feed them, water them, everything that goes with it. At a very young age, I had a lot of responsibilities. So, and that all works back towards that old thing where, you're, socially, things go awry. And the times then, it wasn't a good thing to be an American Indian. So that was hidden for a very, very long time. I've got a cousin that contacted me a year ago, said I had no idea we were Native American.
Now today, where the Native Americans have been recognized at this time, thanks to social media and changing attitudes and everything. And do you think this presence of bringing it out from way back when has actually helped you guys, or is it being put on as more of a bullseye, as more criticism?
You've got to look at that a myriad of ways. This country was founded on what it was founded on. We cannot change that. No matter how many statues we tear down, no matter what we do, no matter if we stop teaching what our true history is in schools, doesn't change our history. It is still what it is. And I've said for years, if we don't teach our history, we are going to repeat it. And look at this craziness that's going on these days around us. And I think it's a double-edged sword in a lot of ways. I've had a lot of my white friends tell me that has really opened their eyes, and they kind of can empathize a little bit more with Native Americans after reading my book. And Nancy Ward was such a magnificent woman who I believe God placed where he placed her at the exact time in history that she needed to be. Mm-hmm. I believe George Washington was the father of this country, and Nancy Ward was the mother of this country.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. We'll talk about Nancy Ward and how you got in writing a book in just a minute. You're listening to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at Facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Apple, Google Play. And subscribe to The Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Take The Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. We're here with author Debra Yates. She's the author of Woman of Many Names, available on Amazon. And it's about Nancy Ward, as she just mentioned, a woman who helped shape the history of our nation. And, of course, before we get into Nancy Ward, and what was the precise moment that influenced you into writing a book and the Woman of Many Names, which is Nancy Ward?
Well, actually, it was a very long, drawn-out process, and I was just making notes for the family, and I wanted to make sure that my nieces and nephews from now until, there is no more Earth or no more Yates relatives, that they would know who their great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother was, and how she played an important role in history and shaping this nation, and how we should be so very proud to be descendant of such a woman and be a descendant of the Cherokee Nation. And, it was not meant to be a book. It was just absolutely written for my family. And I had a gal transcribe my notes for me and, put it on the disc and all that stuff on the computer. And I'm very not skilled at computer skills. I had to have help for sure. And that's how it all started. And the lady that transcribed it said, "Oh, this needs to be a book. People need to know this stuff, Deborah." And she goes, it really was eye-opening for me. And so at that point I sat down and, took an objective look at it and tried to decide what to do. When I decided to proceed, I just started making phone calls and reading everything I could get my hands on, ordering every book I could find on her to find out what was written about her already. And then I took the family stories that I had written down about our grandmother and combined it all together and made Woman of Many Names. And it's the story of Nancy Ward. She was the reason it has that title in the very beginning of the book. It will give you a list of approximately 13, and I found a couple more names and or titles that Nancy Ward went by through her lifetime. And the more I run into different people, and family members, I hear a little bit different stories too that that I was able to weave into those writings. Now, it is absolutely written as fiction because some of that stuff is, you have to make a book interesting, don't you know?
Exactly, you're right, yeah.
So I can't exactly know everything that's in that book, but I think I got a pretty good idea what my granny was up to. Mm-hmm. But pretty much most of it pretty good. Every once in a while might have been.
It sounds like it, too. In the first part, she has ties to Daniel Boone and George Washington. You were going to talk about that. And now, of course, she saved George Washington as well, too. And tell us, how did she have ties with Daniel Boone and George Washington?
Okay, well, Daniel Boone was known as Wide Mouth in the amongst our people, and that was because they thought he was like way crazy. Mm-hmm. He would go through the mountains singing at the top of his lungs and belting out these big notes and stuff. So that's how he got the name Wide Mouth. and I believe they met somewhere amongst in there when she would have been in probably her early to mid 20s. And then as time progressed and as the country grew, Daniel Boone was hired by the Transylvania Company to open up the trails through the Cumberland Gap and open up Kentucky. Well, what happened was that was kind of our hunting grounds up in there, our summer hunting grounds. So it was kind of like Cherokee land, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Shawnee were in Ohio, and, Kentucky was pretty, everybody hunted there. So it was considered Cherokee grounds. So he bought Kentucky from Nancy Ward.
Wow, that's amazing too. And did he mean enough resistance when it came to dealing with the Cherokees and buying this territory, or were they like, yeah, sure, go ahead and buy it?
I think that over time that his reputation preceded him. He did have some not so nice dealings with the Shawnee,
Mm-hmm.
who also went there. But I believe, as far as the Cherokee were concerned, they really liked him, and everybody thought he was touched a little bit. So when you were touched in the head, they didn't bother to kill you. So that's part of why he did what he did.
Interesting. What's the difference between the Cherokee and the Shawnee as well, too?
We're all descended from like the Iroquois, the Delaware, the Powhatans. We're all technically the same blood, but as each one would shoot off, they just went by a different name. But we're all the same blood.
Okay, got it, too.
All of the same blood.
And she also talked about George Washington as well, too. And how was she connected with George Washington?
Well, with George Washington, all I can prove is that we know that she negotiated treaties through all the areas of Virginia and the Carolinas and Tennessee that made it able for Mr. Washington, George Washington, to be able to traverse those areas unencumbered. Had those treaties not been in place that allowed him to do that, he would have met with very large resistance of many contingents of many Native American tribes. So it was, I believe that through Thomas Jefferson was the main crux of how you get back from Nancy Ward to George Washington. There was and I wish I could remember the name of it, but I can't. There was a meeting called for 13 or 14 chiefs in the Cherokee Nation and those areas up in there. So they went to meet up for this meeting, and they were all taken prisoners. Nancy Ward and Oconostau, which was, one of our great leaders also, war chief, and who happened to be running around loose was her other uncle, Attakulla.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Attakulla was able to negotiate, and as well as along with Thomas Jefferson, secured Nancy Ward's release from that meeting. Also, who was allowed to leave also was Oconostau. They were the only two that were allowed to leave that meeting. As soon as they basically left that meeting or that prison, they were being held prisoner. They were all killed.
Oh no!
Oh yes, the other 11 were all died after that. So my grandmother was special. And there has been, I've seen a copy of it, and somebody did me a big favor one day and cleaned up my computer for me and deleted it, a letter that Nancy Ward had written to George Washington that was found amongst Thomas Jefferson's possessions. So there is a trail somewhere. It's just finding it all and getting my hands back on it. I have seen it. She was well schooled. Her birth had been kind of like foretold, that there would be a great woman that would rise up out of the Wolf Clan to lead her people to greatness. And when my grandmother was born, her grandmother took her to bathe her in the river. which is customary among the Cherokee. We're very cleanly people. We liked our daily baths. You took a bath every day.
Mm-hmm.
You did not want to stink. And the men pulled their hair out.
That's a given.
The men pulled their hair out too, because that's how we tracked those settlers and the colonialists and the French and the English. We could smell them. We could literally smell the stench, because they didn't believe in bathing every day. Once a week, you were lucky. So we're the ones that actually taught those folks how to bathe. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, an interesting, unusual tidbit there, pretty much. But yeah, see, I mean, you were of royalty if you bathed every day, and they didn't even like to bathe every day. So, and those those uncles also went to England on a ship called the Fox back in the in the earlier 1700s to hang out with King George the Third, I believe it was.
It sounds like King George the Third.
It was the third. And you are correct. Thank you. Well, there was so many of them, these King Georges. Anyways, so it was kind of another interesting experience that our family had, and that's how, quote unquote, their father was named the Emperor.
Huh, interesting.
Of America. That's what the King of England decided to call him. So when they went over there, they took a coon skin type hat,
mm-hmm.
and gave it to King George, and he called it the Crown of Tennessee. Because see, Tennessee was supposed to be Tennessee.
Huh.
Not
interesting.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Oh my goodness.
Ohio means beautiful river, and I'm not sure what language that came out of, but that's one of the native languages. Ohio meant beautiful river. So it's how they kept a lot of our names, a lot of the cities, like Etowah means muddy water.
Mm-hmm.
Just interesting little things like that. But if you take the time to just Google Nancy Ward, the information that pops up is completely crazy, and some of it very true, some of it not so true. And, and I'm sure there's a lot of embellishment that went on back and forth, but, I have to believe that what my grandfather told me was true, that my grandmother knew George Washington. So, that's my family lore. And, there you go.
Amazing, too. And, of course, you could say about Nancy Ward, she did not help George Washington cut the cherry tree down. That's one thing for sure.
No. Nobody's even sure he cut that tree down, don't you know?
You have to ask her as well, too. We'll get to Debra Yates in just a minute, talk about some of the role models, memorialized, and another name, woman of many names. Listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at Facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also, Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Apple, and Google Play. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel and take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. We're here with author Debra Yates, the author of Woman of Many Names, available on Amazon. It's about Nancy Ward, the woman who helped shape the history of our nation. She had ties to Daniel Boone and George Washington, and also served as a role model akin to Joan of Arc. You can just tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I'm really not sure where that Joan of Arc came from. My publisher, he just said, Deborah, he goes, think about this. He said, if your grandmother hadn't been where she was supposed to be when she was supposed to be there, then all these other things wouldn't have taken place if she would have died in the Battle of Taliawa. And the Battle of Taliawa happened in northern Georgia, around Ball Ground, Georgia. And her husband was struck down, by a Creek warrior. And she had been kind of injured herself, and at that juncture, she picked up his lands and went after the enemies, even though the the war chief had told everybody to retreat.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, it's like, no, they killed my man, and I'm going after them. So when that happened, had she fallen, what would happened in history?
Mm-hmm.
How history could have been so different, how so many settlers could have died because she sent warnings into villages, next door and, 10 miles down the road and 50 miles away, that were in imminent danger of attacks from our people. And, she risked her life and her limbs to protect innocent women and children and people of other settlements. She just, after the Battle of Taliwa, she knew her path had to be directed towards peace, not towards war. And, we all have that, line that we have to cross somewhere in our own mind, even in just everyday life, it seems like. And, do we choose the red path to peace, or the red path to war, or the white path to peace? And she made, a decision that she was going to work for peace in the country that she lived in, a safe place for her children and her grandchildren to live and go into the future. And her land was supposed to be held by the government for as long as America was America, for her and her seed, her children. And of course, that was another treaty that got broken eventually. But, and my family and the Cherokee Nation actually, approached Congress back in the 60s to give them those lands back that were promised, a couple hundred years ago. You're going back on your word. This needs to be reinstated for this woman's legacy, for what she did for this country. And, well, don't they turned us down. But what did happen about 2 years ago was the town where the book is really, mostly based around in this one is called Chota. And Chota is near Fort Loudon, Tennessee. And the government actually gave it back to the Cherokee, the Eastern Band Cherokees. So, one good thing has come of that, and there's other lands they could give back to the Native Americans if they really wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think would be a splendiferous, opportunity to pay homage to, at least the seven civilized tribes, that, if there's some of our lands that we could have back, would be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And would be, I think, seen as such a red flag or a peace flag, a white flag. I'm not sure which flag you would call that.
Mm-hmm.
But what a great thing that would be for our government to do, to allow some of our peoples from one end of this country to the other to go back to our old homelands that nobody's using anyways, that are just being held, or at least allow us the right to live on them again.
Mm-hmm.
People go, oh, well, these people are living on these, in these territories and these reservations and stuff, Well, what you don't understand is those Native Americans can't do anything with that land.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really theirs. They can't go get a loan to build a house on that land because
right.
It's not theirs. And folks just really don't understand that, yeah, it may sound hunky-dory to everybody else, but go try to live that. You could move a mobile home on there, but that's nothing that you can hand down to your children in 50 years. It's going to fall apart. It's not brick. It's not stone. It's not, timber of the earth that's big and strong, and, how we used to live. I mean, imagine spending every day, every waking moment, every sleeping moment surviving.
Mm-hmm.
Just surviving, and then having everybody after you. The French are after you, the Spanish are after you, the Mexicans are after you, the French are after you, the colonialists are after you. Can you imagine having to live like that and everybody being your enemy? Oh, well, she sure did flip-flop on her decisions. I said, yeah, stick 1,000 men outside your camp with 1,000 guns and see what you'll do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. you have to roll with the ebb and the tide. You have to do at the moment what is correct to do for your people. And that's what Oconostota, Attakullakulla, Doublehead, Nancy Ward, and all these, and even Dragging Canoe. I mean, he's, a different, her cousin, who was a famous, he was a brutal warrior, but he was sticking up for our people. He was off doing what, the Cherokee couldn't, because, we were a friendly people for the most part, and very, gracious and kind, and, okay, well, let's teach these people how to live and how to eat and how to survive here. Oh, well, darn, drat, we shouldn't have done that. And, Dragging Canoe, he sected off and became Chickamauga, a Chickamauga Cherokee.
Mm-hmm.
And that sect was like our warring sect. And then you have the Kituas, or the Kitawas, however you want to say that word. Depends on what part of the country, how they call that word, which means protectors, like the police. So that became a different sect. So you've got all these different, branches off of, what originally leads back to who was hanging out on Martha's Vineyard, So
Martha's Vineyard. Oh my
goodness.
Yeah,
Martha's Vineyard, Indians lived on Martha's Vineyard. Go figure. It gets interesting, doesn't it? So, we were very sophisticated people that lived here. We had trading routes for maybe thousands of years, from the west coast to the east coast, to the north to the south, into Canada. That's not stupid people.
Mm-hmm.
That is very intelligent, minded people. And, I get so, hurt sometimes when people, they're just dirty Indians. Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? We took baths every day,
Right.
Well, but they scalp people. Oh, but guess what? No, sorry. The English taught us how to do that. Okay. Well, do unto others, it all leads back to somewhere, but I believe God had an absolute divine plan for this country, and my grandmother was part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's amazing, too. And, of course, she's also known as Nanyehi. Did I say that right? The Trail of Tears? Did I say that right? Nanyehi?
Nanyehi, yes.
Nanyehi. Okay, she's known by that name, also known as the Trail of Tears, one of the great American tragedies. So tell us all about that.
Well, Nanyehi doesn't mean Trail of Tears. What my grandmother did was, approximately 30 years before her death, she said she had a vision, and she told her family that she saw her people walking in a line with tears streaming down their face.
Mm-hmm.
And and out of that came Trail of Tears. But what also came out of that was a very large part of my family evacuated themselves from the Tennessee, the Georgia, the Carolina areas because of what she said. They revered her. And, if Nanyehi had a vision, you can just about bet it's coming true sometime or another. So we evacuated. A lot of my family did not walk the Trail of Tears. They went as what is referred to as old settlers.
Uh-huh.
And those folks started, leaving, in the early 1800s. Probably the 1820s, I believe, is about when they started to evacuate,
mm-hmm.
because the writing was on the wall that we were, not wanted where we were at. They wanted our lands. They wanted our gold mines. They wanted our silver mines. They wanted our assets that we had. And they were ours. They were on our homestead. Everything was kind of lotted up, and you lived here, and when you go back and you look at those old rolls, when they seized those properties, it would say 1 house, 1 barn, 3 sheds, 5 acres cleared.
Oh my goodness.
A gold mine or a silver mine. And guess what they got paid for?
How much?
They got paid for those 5 cleared acres, even though they might have held 5,000.
5,000. So that would mean in today's economy, that would be about. What would that be about?
You don't understand. They had 500 acres. I'm
sorry. I'm sorry. I thought you said $5,000. I thought that's what you said. It's like $5,000. It's like what's that in today's economy?
they might have had 5,000 acres, but they only got paid for 5. Now, I saw the numbers at one time, Doll, and I am absolutely cannot recall off the top of my head what those numbers were, what that came down monetarily to. But what they did was they kept the money. They gave everybody a free, not free, but it paid for the transportation of the people out west on those trails of tears.
Huh.
So they actually took the money. They didn't really get any money.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness.
Kept the money and used that money supposedly to feed for food and transportation to take them out west.
Mm-hmm. That is amazing, too. And we'll talk about an influential director regretting not making a movie about Nancy Ward. We'll get to that in just a minute. You listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking for a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at Facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and iTunes, Apple, and Google Play as well, too. Take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device and subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. We're here with author Debra Yates, Woman of Many Names, available on Amazon. It's about Nancy Ward, a woman who has helped shape the history of our nation, and she had ties to Daniel Boone and George Washington. She served as a role model for young girls, akin of Joan of Arc, and there was an influential director that regretted not making a movie about her life. That's Elia Kazan. So you can just tell us all about that.
His name was Elia Kazan.
Kazan. Okay,
Kazan.
I'm glad you mentioned it. Thank you.
I didn't know that was going to come up. Let me tell you, he was a famous director back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Mm-hmm. And he spent quite a bit of time in the Tennessee area. And he made several movies in Tennessee somewhere. And one of them was about the Tennessee River and how they dammed that up and for the TVA. And so while he was there and he stayed, I guess they were there quite a few months, the locals, were telling him stories about Chota and about Nancy Ward and Fort Loudon and also different stories about the man that did our syllabary that was from that area also. And so he couldn't find a script. He couldn't find, enough, somebody to write a good enough script to do a movie on Nancy Ward, which would have been so cool. But
in other words, lack of research.
Well, research now and research then, I'm sure were two totally different things. Mm-hmm. And think about it, being a Native American Indian back in the 40s and 50s, and most of them were in hiding. Even the ones that stayed in Tennessee and in the Carolinas, I don't think they really put themselves out there that much because of the discrimination in that time. And certainly there was enough mistrust between people that they just weren't giving up those stories. I didn't know any better. I'm giving those stories up that I've heard because, it's only right that that people understand where the Native Americans are coming, where in each individual race has a story to tell. And I find it so amazing that the revival of people being interested in our people, in our culture, and how it's influenced America. It's and also how it was shunned by Americans too. So, mm-hmm. We just, have to look into our hearts and say, it's time for everybody to forgive each other not deny what happened, but accept what happened, because nobody's alive that did any of those things. Nobody.
Right.
They've been dead a couple hundred years, for goodness sakes.
Mm-hmm.
So, why can't we just set it to the side, as it was like when I edited my book out. It was hard to, I had to take out some anger, because anger did start to creep in, because I really felt like, Nancy was telling the story with my hands
Mm-hmm.
and with my mind. And how could you not be angry about what has happened to, the people that were our original people, and if you've got half a heart, how could you not have compassion
Mm-hmm.
for people that have been altered forever? The rate of depression amongst, natives is astounding.
I bet.
Astounding. They believe that that our conquering changed our DNA.
Mm-hmm.
and gave us great sadness. And can you imagine, leaving, Tennessee with 15 family members and only 2 or 3 making it to Oklahoma? And you get there and all the kids are dead.
Oh, my.
And all the elders are dead, because that's what happened. It took out the young and it took out the old. And so we had generations, that were lacking, children. I mean, they had to get busy once they got out there recreating families again. And, we lost, at least 2/3, I believe 2/3 of our children.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's how many we lost. We can pretty much believe that we lost 16,000 people on the trail. I believe, I might be in this by myself, but that we lost at least 16,000 before anybody ever went on the trail.
Wow.
In our imprisonment or our detainment, whatever you want to call that. The conditions were horrible. There was lots of people in a small area, and we all know what happens when that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And it was fall. Oh, here, let me grab my coat and shoes. Oh no, get out of here.
Oh, it's like it's like they're forced to leave possessions behind. They had to just walk outright.
Walk right out. Absolutely.
Wow.
Wherever you were. If you were in bed, you walked out in your nightie. And, that was just cruel beyond any measure of anything, not to allow people to pack up some of their possessions, what they could fit in their cart or, whatever. I don't know. We can't change it, but it is heart-rending. And if you can't see that, and people are still angry about it today, and I get it. I do. I swear I get it.
I understand too. And do you think the relations of the Cherokee and its people, and also with America, has that improved by any chance throughout the years?
I think that it has in a lot of ways. I mean, they have their own government. They have some of their own health care. They are just fixing to open a medical school in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, where people are going to come and study medicine.
Nice.
And through that, the hope is that a lot of these kids that are going to go through this school are going to see the need on these reservations, or whatever you want to call them, nations. If you look at a map, it says reservation. You look at another map, it says nation. But there are so many deserving people living in these places in the middle of nowhere that need health care.
Mm-hmm.
They need dentists. They need psychiatrists, psychologists. And a lot of our young people that are going to be doctors and so on and so forth, they come from great privilege already. More than 10% of these kids are coming from doctors and stuff themselves. Their parents and their grandparents were physicians, and I am just hoping that somewhere along the line people see the need and do something here for these people. We do need to go into other countries and help, but we need to look at home.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't have to go there and live forever. I'm not saying that, but open small clinics and hospitals that these people can get training for, and that these people can be, getting health care and dentistry and mental health care that's so sorely needed in these places. I think the Cherokee government is doing an amazing job of that. The Western Band Cherokee, all their monies that they raise from their casinos and so on and so forth goes into those programs. And, we're a self-sustaining government out there, or they are, and it's a beautiful thing. It is a beautiful, beautiful thing. It's a role model for any business, that wants to see, how somebody does something maybe just a little bit different and still succeeds. And we've elected a new chief out there, or they have elected a new chief. I'm not a member of the Cherokee tribe myself, but I couldn't. My soul is 100% Cherokee, and I am a mutt. Trust me, I am a true mutt.
It sounds like everybody too. It's like having these mixed breeds and everything else. And of course,
Yeah.
And of course, another question as well too, which just came to mind. With the presence of the Cherokee and the other tribes, how well do you think they will be working with Donald Trump getting these issues resolved?
With the climate of things, it doesn't look real good. But he's probably looking at things a whole lot differently than what they do. I mean, I think he's coming at it with a business head, and I think that Native Americans and maybe all people are coming at it from a different place, and because we don't all have business minds, and they think differently than other people do. It takes a lot to be able to run a major corporation, and as well as I do, they think different. They just do. Politicians think differently than businessmen. Housewives think differently than everybody. It just depends on what your experiences are. I think that that hopefully someday here real soon that people are just gonna be glad for what we have going on right now. We have elections in this country for a reason every 4 years. And if that many people don't like our president, then they need to go vote.
And that's amazing, too. And, of course, the best part about Nancy Ward, she's memorialized in Benton, Tennessee by federal historical marker. And I guess the question is, why Benton, Tennessee?
Well, after Chota was destroyed, General Sevier actually took her prisoner, and he wrote Thomas Jefferson a letter. And in that letter, he said, I do not know what to do with Nancy Ward. Thomas Jefferson wrote him a letter back saying, ask Nancy Ward what to do with Nancy Ward. She will know best. He let her go.
That is amazing.
He let her go.
There you go.
She basically moved to Benton, Tennessee on the Ocoee River just south of Benton. And she had a mill where, they do at mills. They make grain and different stuff like that. And you could actually kind of still see where the old mill sat. And then she opened an inn, and it was called Woman Killer Ford.
Killer Ford, interesting.
Woman Killer Ford. So
I like some Woman Killer Ford, please.
Yeah, let me off this river. I want to stay at Woman Killers over here.
You want fries with that?
There you go. They got good beans over there.
Oh my goodness, I can imagine.
Yeah, so
I'll have to eat there sometime.
Can you imagine? So I've actually been to the site, and seen the foundation stones and stuff where her inn and her home actually was, and she lived and died there, as well as her brother and son also lived and died there, and they're all three now buried not too far from where that old inn sat. So when I discovered that, I was just going to a park that was named after my granny. My cousin caused me on lounging on the beach in, let's see, I think it was South Carolina or Charleston, wherever Charleston is. And she goes, "Did you know our grandmother had a park named after her?" And I said, "Well, I absolutely did not know our grandmother had a park named after her. Where's it at?" Benton, Tennessee. I said, "Well, let me look at this here." She goes, "It's by Chattanooga." And I said, "Well, there's no good way from here to Chattanooga, but let me look at this and I'll call you tomorrow." So I sat down with the map and I'm going, oh my gosh, I got to go almost all the way back to Savannah.
Oh my
This
goodness.
is no fun. Oh, there's no good way. There's no good way from there to Chattanooga, trust me. So,
oh my gosh.
I go backtracking, and the next day I woke up and I knew I had to go. So I loaded up and went to Tennessee. So when I pulls up there, it's like, oh my goodness, it's a park, a boat ramp, and oh my Lord, she's buried here. Oh no, this cannot be. How did I not know this all these years? We didn't know. I didn't know. So I called my cousin. I said, oh, it gets even better. She's buried here with her son and her brother. And so that began the journey. That's actually what began this journey to write this book and to tell this tale. And, it's been, a little over 3 years. And by Jove, I'm still talking to folks. So I'm just hoping that, somebody's listening will read this and really enjoy it and, tell your friends about it. It's not probably the best written book in the world, but I'm not the best speller or, and all that kind of stuff. I'm just an older lady that decided to do a pen project here. And I hope everybody that does read it enjoys it immensely and gets curious about their own ancestors and where they might have come from.
That's amazing as well, too, and we're all looking forward to your book as well, too. And what are some of your upcoming projects that you have? Do you have another book coming out or something similar or anything like that?
Well, so far, I really, there's one place I have to go back to, and that is back to Thomas Jefferson's Monticello. And I think that I might have more answers there to finishing this book. As you can well imagine, having to delve through presidential records and stuff like that from a couple hundred years ago is not easy. And I do have the beginnings of another one written, and I hope to be able to get back to that soon and put another one back out there and finish up the story of Nancy Ward. Even though it is fairly well documented, you can find a lot of stuff online about that. My main concern with this first one was to make sure that Kingfisher, my grandmother's husband, and my grandfather got his just due in literature, and to know a little bit more about him as well as the culture of the ancient, Cherokee, and kind of what we were about. Nancy Ward held the power of life and death in her hands. They made her wings. There is some discrepancy about that. My grandfather told me they were swan wings, that she wore swan wings when she would do her tribal type duties. And if she took her hand and went to the right with it, you got to go. And if she went to the left with it, you weren't going anywhere. She held the power of life and death in her hands. And, to think back on a woman in the 1700s and the 1800s wielding that sort of power among her own people, how, awe-inspiring could that be?
Right.
How intimidating that could be, because other cultures that were all around us didn't see women as being useful figures, as we know about history and about how women have been looked upon before, and some even now. But there were great women. Joan of Arc absolutely was one of those, and Nanyehi, Nancy Ward, was one of those. And there are so many other great women in history that lived and survived and ruled well. And I am looking forward to our first female president. Absolutely.
That sounds amazing. We'll talk more about that. And once again, what's your website and how do people contact you?
It's you just go to Facebook and search Woman of Many Names and like it. And from there, you can get in touch with me with any questions that you might have or, just any type of communication in that result. And, find out about upcoming events. You can, hear, read, see, different things that I've done in the past, too.
That's amazing, too. And once again, Debra Yates, the author of Woman of Many Names, available on Amazon. And just wanted to say a big thank you for your time. You've been fantastic. Looking forward to having you on again soon. And please do everybody a favor and keep us up to date.
Oh, thanks so much, Mike. It's been a pleasure. It truly has been. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Listen online at themikewagnershow.com and on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. And watch the interview on YouTube. Also, become a sponsor of the program and or donate today at themikewagnershow.com. Join us again tomorrow for another episode of The Mike Wagner Show.